This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? I'll be joined in a second by my co-host, the Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez. He's been busy traveling all over the country, riding the roller coasters, having fun, while the rest of us here are just working stiffs. We'll talk a little to Carlos about that. I want to welcome everybody on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube live this morning. We will be seen on Roku now on Fridays at 10 a.m. So keep an eye out for that. Also, I want to thank all the groups that allow us to share. I did not bring up a spotlighted group this morning. I apologize. I've been a little busy, but we'll get back to that here with our next show. And also make sure you're checking out Roku. The Roku exclusive started up at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday on Northeast Streaming Sports app on Roku. So get those Roku devices downloaded. All the sports news of the day and more with myself and Mac McGrath. And Jenny Pags has filled in a couple times this week, and lots of information to be had there. Good morning, Alan. Good to have you with us this morning. And this morning, just before I bring Carlos in, I want to give you a little rundown of our agenda today. We're going to talk Brittney Griner news. She pled guilty yesterday. See what's next for her, and talk about the entire ordeal and some complaints that have popped up, different news sources, social media, etc. We'll talk about Baker Mayfield and going to Carolina, whether it's good for Baker, whether it's good for the Panthers, and what it means for the Browns. And also, we'll jump into the NBA and talk about some of the winners and losers so far in this offseason. And we'll feel free to accept your comments as well. Let me bring in the Mad New Yorker. Good morning, Carlos. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. Morning, Keith.
Good to see you back. You had a nice trip to Florida. Saw Mickey and the crew.
Yeah, man. It was exciting. It was good times. If anybody ever get a chance to visit Walt Disney World, I recommend it. Just don't try to do it all in a week.
Have your kids been there before?
No, it's the first time. So.
Cool. It's always fun. And, me, I don't like crowds, so I'm probably not going to Disney World anytime soon. You get old, you get cranky, and they're like, get these people out of my space. Anyway.
The interesting thing about Disney and being in Orlando, Florida, of all places, it's an international, hotspot. A lot of people from all over the world come to visit Mickey here in Orlando, over there in Florida and Orlando. So
cool. It is a great place to see. I've been to Orlando. I've not been to Disney World. I've been to SeaWorld, and I've done some other things there, but stay there a lot of times when we go out for cruises. We'll stay there and then drive down to Port Canaveral for leaving from there. So,
okay. It's
a cool little town, though. The international drive there is a nice trip. A lot of cool stuff going on. So let's jump into our topics. Our first topic today, I want to talk a little bit about Brittney Griner. And as most of you know or don't know, Brittney is a star WNBA player and has been for a while. Was a standout at Baylor.
Yeah.
Was playing in Russia to supplement her income for all intents and purposes, because she was getting paid. If I'm not mistaken, I read she was getting paid like 3 times to play in Russia as she was making in the WNBA. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I did see that number yesterday. And she's been detained in Russia for getting caught at the airport with some illegal substances in her possession. And, no speedy trial, obviously. We're talking about Russia. And now our State Department has claimed she's been illegally detained. I think they came up with that at least a week or two ago. And the trial started last Friday. And yesterday, after a week of this, she has turned around and pled guilty to all the charges, which she faces a 10-year sentence for. But I got to believe there's other stuff going on behind the scenes here, and that's why she pled guilty. Let's talk about the whole situation in general. Let's start with why she had to be there. Well, let me start here. If this was, first of all, I've seen a lot of comparisons that, if this was a male basketball star who was playing in Russia, that they would have been out the next day.
Yeah, so I don't believe that would have been true at all. This is Russia. They have rules. They have regulations that are strict. Being an ex-communist country, they still have some of that undertone there, more than we expect as Americans and those who travel. And even people from Russia or from the former states that are against Putin and his regime have had issues. Most recently, the New York Rangers' Artem Panarin. People thought he's disappeared, and he didn't disappear. He was just hiding out and making sure that he wasn't found while he was visiting going back to his country. So, I mean, these are things that happen that I guess a lot of us are not keen to, but a lot of other people in the sporting world know this. If they do go to Russia and they get contracts to play in any of the sports, there is a lot of there's some cons, there's some pros and some cons for going to an international country and playing like Russia. And a lot of the cons are you have to be, you have to know the rules and the regulations. Now, in the case of Brittney Griner, she should have got detained for having illegal drugs. Should she have been imprisoned? No, probably not. This is just Russia's stronghold, and way to try to manipulate the situation to work in their favor.
Yeah.
It's, being in a war with Ukraine, they don't want to, they're not going to be in contact with the Americans. The Americans are the ones who should be in contact with them for this detainee, Brittney Griner, and help her, of course, through the embassy. But the situation got messy because, the situation, it is what it is. And Russian, the government, they are who they are. So, and they're going to take any kind of advantage.
Well, we also have very strained relations with them at the moment, too.
Right.
So.
I mean, so the relationship is strange, but had this happened in another foreign country, like in the Philippines, or even in a place like Spain, she would have got detained, but she would have just been able to pay a fee and got out of it and just traveled on her way for the amount of drugs that she actually had on her, right? So
it's funny to go back to that comparison with a male star, because again, I was somebody around her, and I don't want to say it was her wife because I don't remember if it was exactly her wife or somebody else in her circle, had said if LeBron James was detained this way, he would have been home the next day. Well, that comparison's silly. Number one, LeBron James doesn't need to go over there and play basketball for money, where Brittney Griner does. And number two, LeBron James probably would have been out of there. If there was a male player over there, it would have been somebody who needed the money. So he wouldn't have been somebody who was a named player, and he'd probably be going through the same exact thing because of the strained relationship between our countries right now. And they're using it as kind of a bargaining chip, I think, over there. So
of course they are. And the negative thing about this is a situation. Brittney Griner is the fact that she does have a partner. She's she's stuck in a misogynistic mindset of a government in the Russian government. They're not as open.
Quick good morning to Robert.
To LGBT and all that. So that doesn't help her case at all. And the fact that she's a woman making money is also not a situation that's helpful. But again, there's a lot of international athletes in Russia that go there to for that reason. The Russian teams pay money, and these players they go there and they have their contracts, and a lot of them who break rules and laws get in trouble, and that's something that's not new. There's been many players in the late 90s and early 2000s from France and other countries that played soccer and had gotten in trouble in Russia and were imprisoned for a couple of years for other things. So this isn't new to the sporting world of athletes getting stuck and imprisoned in Russia. It's not. So
Yeah, she's probably the biggest name athlete, even though it's a WNBA. She is a star athlete in this country, right? Not on the level of LeBron James, obviously, and that's not to dismiss her at all. And it's impossible, unfortunately, to talk about this topic and not talk about politics a little bit, because who Brittney Griner is, as you said, she's a gay woman, and here she's taken very strong political stances about the WNBA shouldn't play the national anthem because of the way minorities are treated in this country, and nothing really happened with our government getting involved. It's appeared to me nothing really started to move until she wrote a letter directly to the White House, which was read, and President Biden did reach out to Brittney's wife to discuss this and say they were going to do everything they could do to get her out. Right. They're also tying that to getting somebody else out, by the way. I can't remember the other political prisoner, if you will, over there that they're trying to get out.
Yeah, so she pleaded guilty to set a course for a prisoner exchange. Right. Which is what the situation is now. But again, because she broke a law, she got detained because over there, the law, she's getting, they're manholding her, and she got in prison because of who she is, and they're trying to use her as a chess piece to manipulate the situation. There's no doubt about that. But our government couldn't get involved because she did break a law over there. So there's a lot of tape over to try to manage to figure the situation out, and her pleading guilty is probably the best way and easiest way for her to get out of Russia, and maybe and also for the U.S. to help her get out. So
and this has become a bit of a lightning rod in social media, which these things typically do, because I'm able to, and believe me, I lean way right on these issues, but I'm able to separate people's right to protest, right, and say what they want, freedom of speech in this country. I can separate that from the sports aspect and the people aspect and what I enjoy. I can do that. A lot of people can't. So with that said, I mean, I don't agree with some of the things I see on social media. I see a lot of people, probably of my persuasion, who will say, leave her there, let her serve her 10 years because she's disrespected this country. With her stance on the national anthem, and she's taking a social, it's a political stance, but it's also a social stance, because it started after the George Floyd murder and some other things that when the other woman that was shot in Tennessee, I believe, when cops stormed her apartment. And I mean, she can take that stance. I don't think we should leave our citizens to flounder in foreign countries' prisons just because they speak their mind here. Right. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, again, the Russia side is the Russia side. We know why that is. But should we have done more? And are these people right? So, again, there's people saying, get her out. The government should have got involved sooner and didn't because of who and what she is. And the other people saying, just leave her there to rot. She's a U.S. hater. And she should serve her punishment. I disagree with that. By the way,
this is a country of freedom of speech, and people could say what they want and think what they want to a certain extent, and social media helps that. But the situation, it is what it is. She broke the law over there, and she did get detained now, which is correct. What is incorrect is the situation that she's in now and being in prison, because, like I said, if you were to travel anywhere else, for the amount of drugs that she had, you might have had to pay a fee and be in prison for maybe even a couple of weeks, but she would already be home by now. And I think that's one of the biggest outrages, is that she's not home for the incident that happened. But again, there's a consequence for everything that you do. Yeah. And she did break the law over there, and the laws aren't the same over there that they are over here. So, and you can have whatever thought you want about Brittney Griner, but the thing is that the U.S. couldn't do anything because that's not their territory, and that's not, and they're in a bad situation politically with Russia, and that situation became and it is terrible right now. And Russia's using it for, in a way to manhandle the U.S. and get some prisoners back, and that's the story, and that's what it is. Everything else behind all that, she's an athlete that has been able to protest and is a very huge activist, but that doesn't. I don't think that has played in any of Russia's mind about
not Russia's mind. No, I'm not saying that.
Right. But I believe that what's said in social media and people's feelings about her and her coming back or her not coming back, that being in the mix has nothing to do with whatever Russia chooses to do with their prisoners.
That's a very good point.
That being said, I know people, like I said, people say what they want, but at the end, these are two countries that have no respect for each other right now. And anybody that goes over there that's American will have the same situation. If they break a rule, they will have to be detained and imprisoned. So, her being a star, that and a basketball star and a woman and who's gay and all those things. Those things don't help her situation, but that's not the reason why she's being in prison, And I think that's what we need to separate. And society needs to understand that, and especially Americans need to understand that when you go to another country, you might be American and carry a U.S. passport, and we might have representation in the U.S. Embassy, but we can't go to other places and break laws and do what we want as we do in our own country or states and think we can get away with it.
Right.
So, and again, countries who visit us, it's the same thing. You can't come here and because you're 15 and you can drink beer at a bar in Germany, don't mean that you could come to the U.S. and go to 7-Eleven and pick up a 40 ounce, because that's not legal. So,
I was doing it. Was illegal 50 years ago?
Yeah, but that's different, like the way things are now. Like even buying cigarettes, kids in China can buy cigarettes at 12, 13 years old. They don't care. But here you can't smoke a cigarette until you're 18. Or you're supposed to not be able to. So
just don't get caught.
That idea and a humanistic approach, take any country or any state or whatever out of it, is the problem for humans. Is that do it until you get caught, and then the consequences sometimes are overwhelming and avalanche.
Well,
happens,
my last comment on this one, it will get me in trouble with my brethren on the right, as I said, because it always does, because my stance here is not popular on my side of the aisle, that I think these athletes can speak up. They have the right to speak up. They have a platform. Let them do it. I can separate their opinions on social justice or whatever we're talking about within reason, right? You can't yell fire in a burning or in a crowded theater. Freedom of speech has limits. But I think they have a right to speak up, and I can separate what they believe, and I don't have to agree with them, and I can separate from their performance on the court. And we have to be more forgiving in this country. We should not think people who don't think the same way we do should rot in foreign prisons just because of the way they think. That's my point.
Yeah, no, of course, and exactly like social media right now, because there is a international, story with the NBA, with the WNBA star, that comes out. Anything that Brittney Griner has done or has been done to her, it comes out as a story, and if you're on her side, great. If you're not on her side, great. But idealistically, what has happened and what continues to happen is that she's not in this country, and we can't do anything about that. Without having to take the proper protocols to get her out. And when she comes back, she's still be an activist if that's what she believes. And that's not going to change. Her being in prison isn't going to change that.
And my guess is the next week or two, Brittney Griner will be back here at home after this guilty plea yesterday. I'm sure it's part of a larger, movements behind the scenes. So
right. I mean, look, it might not be next week. It might be in the next 90 days.
Well, I don't think it'll be that long. I think it's going to be fairly quick. I do. We don't know, but
yeah. Again, the process and everything in another foreign country like Russia it takes what it takes, and she's taken the steps, and she's had because she has enough money, she has a decent legal team to help her.
Yeah,
you know, and that's a positive for her. You know,
I don't think she'd have pleaded guilty unless she knew that there was some other plan in place already. She would have.
Of course, yeah. And again, if it was another country and it was Brittney Griner, she would probably already been home. You know. So.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Let's move on to a little. I don't know if it's it's a more fun topic than what we were just talking about, obviously, and it's less political, obviously. Well, to some extent, Baker Mayfield finally has a new home this week. It's traded for, I believe, a fifth-round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken. Cleveland will pick up the majority of his contract. I think it's roughly $20 million. Carolina pays $4.5 million of that. I always said that these teams should wait until they had to release him because Cleveland couldn't keep him. But I guess if you had multiple teams in play, then you got to make a trade to be sure you get them if you want them. Question's going to be, who's this good for? Is it good for Baker Mayfield? He's got a chance to play quarterback. Is it good for Carolina? I think it's good for Matt Rule. This is his last chance. He's got to make good this year. And now this is his best chance to turn things around a little bit in Carolina. But what are your thoughts in general as we get started on this topic?
The winner is Matt Rule, but the bad thing about this is that Baker's really not going to be able to show all his skills if they don't give him a little bit more to work with. You know, McCaffrey's great. He's going to make anybody look like a good quarterback. He needs to stay healthy, right? So, morning, Bob. And it doesn't help the team aspect or esprit de corps at all. It doesn't help Carolina because now they got to pay $36 million to two quarterbacks that are maybe supposedly going to be backup quarterbacks in the next few years. So,
he's a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. I think we know that, right?
Yeah. Okay. Fair. He might win that quarterback battle, but is he going to win the NFC South?
I mean, is it a battle? I got to believe Baker Mayfield's a
I think Sam Darnold is a competitor. That was never in question.
No, I'll give him that. I will give Sam Darnold that. Yes.
Yeah, he's always been a competitor. Now, he is who he is until somebody can figure him out and help him out. And that's one of the biggest problems that he's had is that there's no offensive coordinator or quarterback coach that's been able to calm him down and use the potential and skills that he has. So, I'm not a Donald fan, but and I'm not a Baker fan either. I don't believe he should have been the first pick. But these two guys, they're very competitive, and that's something that's gonna maybe be good for Rule. But again,
Baker Mayfield is
who's protecting either of these guys, and what weapons do they have besides McCaffrey? Because that's going to be an issue, right?
I'm a little interested in Kenny's statement here that Darnold beat him out because I'm pretty sure when they made the trade, he just said that Carolina would win the South, the NFC South. So
no way, no, not at all.
For Carolina, it's an upgrade at the quarterback spot, which I totally agree with. Mayfield gives them a better chance to win tight game situations. Darnold hasn't proved he can do that yet. I don't disagree with any of that. Baker Mayfield is a better NFL quarterback than Sam Darnold. Forget about the competitor. I get that part. And he's gone to the playoffs. He's won big games. He had a bad year last year. He was hurt. I've never been the biggest fan. I love his commercials, by the way. I hope we get to see the commercials.
Carolina is not a team like the Browns. And I think that they have to understand that, right? And Coach Rule knows that. But again, who's going to protect Mayfield and who is he throwing to?
Well, he's got some weapons. I mean, Robbie Anderson is a talented guy when he puts his mind to it. He can be a really good wide receiver when he puts his mind to it. The key to me to this team, Baker Mayfield, if he plays quarterback the way he played previous to last year in Cleveland, and Christian McCaffrey's healthy, this team is going to be competitive. And who knows, they could win that South if those things happen. Those are big ifs because Christian McCaffrey's never been healthy for an entire season.
Right. So the most important thing is Matt Rule needs to take control, and he's the leader of this ball club. No player is going to step on that field and say, we're going to win this. Not Baker Mayfield, not Sam Darnold, not Robbie Anderson, none of those guys. If Rule and his coordinators can get on the same page, he's going to have a chance to win the NFC South. But, that's up to the coaching staff to make sure that these guys are in the right place at the right time. Again, who's going to protect these guys? Their O-line is the reason McCaffrey can't stay on the field.
And they did upgrade.
Yeah, but so they upgraded their O-line, but they haven't played together yet.
No, but
even if you add a piece or two, it doesn't mean that you're better. It just means that you upgraded.
That O-line is not the entire reason Christian McCaffrey hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's had a lot of issues that, I mean, he's hurt himself when he wasn't even playing in football games. So he's a kind of a fragile guy. Unfortunately, he's a very talented guy too. I think this guy's one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. We just need to see him for 16 games.
He needs to look. They need to get a fullback. They need to stop doing the tight end sets because that doesn't help them. They need to do a lot of things to showcase the talent that they have, and they don't. So again, Matt Rule, this is your opportunity, man. You know.
Listen, as far Mayfield had a playoff contender and did what Kenny says there. I don't want to say it. But let's remember something. He had them at one bad call.
Yeah.
From getting to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years.
And again, that team was so much was improving, right? And it's so much better, is a way better team than what the Panthers have at the moment. Now, here's the key. The Panthers have a better defense now than they do in offense. But if their offense don't make any improvements, their defense is going to go to junk because they won't be able to get off the field.
To me, this is a no-brainer. You said, Matt, in the beginning, Matt Rule's the winner. I agree. Matt Rule, this is a make-or-break year for Matt Rule. And I loved Matt Rule. I loved this hire, and I thought it was going to be a great deal putting him and the offensive coordinator is escaping my mind now. The guy who came from LSU.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah, his name's escaping me. Robert will probably remember. It's just he got fired. Brady, Joe Brady.
Yeah, Brady. Yeah.
Got fired during midseason last year. I thought when they brought those two guys in, or Matt brought in Brady, that this was going to be a team that on the rise, and they just have not been able to get over the hump. And this is a make or break season for Matt Rule. So he wins here because Robert talks about this being a heated preseason battle to the end. I don't know. I don't think Sam Darnold can win this battle. I don't even know that it's a battle. But
yeah, here's this deal is kind of moronic because either quarterback wins. None of them either one don't have to play, and they're going to get paid $18 million no matter what they do. So you're not making it that competitive. You're just giving them a starting position. Either way, they're both going to make $18 million.
Yeah, I don't know that Baker beating Darnold in his first game matters that much. It's a team game. It's not quarterback versus quarterback. Kenny says, "Wait a minute, don't you always say to let the?" No, I agree. You're right, Kenny. I'm not trying to take both sides of this. I say don't let the refs beat you. I do say that, but I can't just dismiss the fact that he had them in position to win that game, and whatever. Joe Brady, thank you for that, Alan. What about the Browns? I mean, the Browns obviously they couldn't bring back, and the losers here are Seattle. Seattle was after him as well. I mean, I know Pete Carroll thinks his quarterback situation, his quarterback room is fine, but it's not, Pete. And if you do, then maybe you should go away. And I love Pete Carroll, but I know he doesn't believe that. So they're a loser here. The Browns are a loser because there's no way they could bring back Brady or Baker Mayfield rather. But we know Deshaun Watson's not playing this year.
Right.
And Jacoby Brissett is now the quarterback unless some other trade is made. And I don't know what out there is left to be had. Maybe Robert knows some information of what's going on out there.
Well, there's already talk about Carolina and Seattle making a deal for Mayfield. It's possible.
I can't see that. I can't see unless what are they going to do? Flip him for a better draft pick than the one they traded? I mean, what's the point of getting him to just flip him?
Look, if they don't need him or they don't want him, they're just helping the Browns, right? So.
And I do know, Alan, Brady got fired midseason last year by Matt Rule. Darnold knows he OC bet. Yeah, I agree. What you better athlete? I don't. I'm not
look. He can run. The problem is that he didn't have we got to see that because he didn't have an O-line, but he almost got hurt running too. So
Browns called last night. Browns called Kenny last night. You had to turn him down apparently. What's Robert got here? Jimmy G. That's a good thing. I was going to bring that up. Jimmy G's still in play. There's still a chance. We don't know what this 49ers are going to do. They got to see how healthy his shoulder is, I think, before they make any decision because they certainly can't move him. And Robert's talking about them possibly cutting him. I mean, what are your thoughts about Jimmy G in Cleveland? I'm not the big look at when he was in New England. He got hurt every time he got a chance to play, which wasn't very often. When Brady got suspended 4 games, he played very good football, but got hurt a game and a half into the season.
Yeah, I think Jimmy G is probably going to end up somewhere else. But it's all going to depend on what they see during the preseason from him. So for sure.
What's Allen got here? Carolina started 3-0 last year and then went in a free fall when they started. Yeah, well, that's a good point. They didn't play. I don't remember who they played the meeting. I think they were winning these games fairly handily too.
Yeah, I got a little visitor today.
Oh, hello. We got a co-host today.
Yeah, she snuck in here.
Well, if there's no
4-year-olds are quick and sneaky, so if you have one, you got to keep an eye on them.
I don't expect to have one. Granddaughter on the way in September, though.
Yeah, congrats, Keith.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, but with Garoppolo, he's still in play for a lot of teams. They're just waiting to see what the 49ers are going to do. And they're waiting to see what he looks like. So
another guy that I don't know why I would trade, I would wait for him to get cut. I said the same thing about Mayfield, but if there's multiple teams involved, then you really can't wait for that scenario, I guess. I think the 49ers are a mess, not to change the subject, but I don't think Trey Lance is ready to run that team. I really don't.
I think Trey Lance will do better than a lot of people going to give him credit for right now because what happened last year. But I don't know if they'll be able to compete at that level, So,
well, Trey Lance has played since high school, if that's what we're talking about, Kenny. But at the end of the day, let's dissect this. So, Baker's gone. Let's assume Deshaun Watson's not playing because I can't believe he's playing this year at least, if not more. I don't know what's holding up this decision. They got to be doing some negotiating behind the scenes because I think the NFL is playing hardball. And the
NFLPA is a good union, and the situation is that he didn't get in trouble as far as the law is concerned. Like he was able to settle, and I think that's the biggest problem and issue right there.
So let's talk about who. So Seattle doesn't get Baker Mayfield. The Browns trade Baker Mayfield. Carolina has Baker Mayfield. Who has a better season this year? I think Carolina is going to be a dark horse and make the playoffs this year with Baker Mayfield quarterback.
I'm gonna go with Cleveland and Carolina having the same record, and Carolina coach probably getting fired.
I think Pete Carroll will step away before he gets fired. I think he's got a job for life. I don't think he'll get fired. But that doesn't mean he won't leave, and it won't be he might get fired. It won't be said he got fired, I guess is what I mean.
But did you say Cleveland and Carolina, or did you say Seattle?
Seattle. I don't think Pete Carroll, if he gets fired, it will not be announced he got fired. He will have stepped away. With
Seattle, he'll step away before he gets fired.
I think he's bulletproof as far as getting fired.
Well, he's more likely to step away before getting fired.
So I think Cleveland, I think Cleveland's probably going to be 6-11, 7-10, and not make the playoffs. And I think Carolina plays around that 9-8, 10-7 maybe mark and makes the playoffs. I think with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback.
Whoa, you think they're going to make a run for the playoffs?
I do.
I think Carolina and Cleveland probably have the same record.
Allen with a good point here. Cleveland versus Carolina, week 1. I did not check that schedule. That's an interesting thought. Year one of Division II, that was COVID season. And remember, Wentz also went there. I'm totally lost with that one, Kenny. You're going to have to give me more information. Oh,
AFC South.
All in all, I think Carolina and Matt Rule are the big winners here, and Baker Mayfield. And Cleveland and Seattle are the big losers for sure.
And the biggest winner are the two quarterbacks making $18 million and not having to play if anything happens.
And the question is, what do they do with Sam Darnold if he's not the starter? I guess does he stay or does he get moved again? Oh, 49ers Trey, I see. Oh, first year Division II. That was the COVID season. You remember? Okay. He's talking about where he went to school. Listen, Carson Wentz. It's not like Carson Wentz is the worst quarterback in football, by the way. No. I mean, he's not the best either, but he's not terrible. He led a team to a Super Bowl. He didn't lead him to a Super Bowl because he got hurt. He led him to position to go to a Super Bowl.
He needs to be on the field and try to stay injury free as much as possible.
Yeah, there's obviously something going on.
The Commanders have a decent team, and they'll be able to do something with them.
Yeah, and Alan knows very well that I think Carson Wentz will have a little early success in Washington, and Washington will win that Eastern Division as well.
Yeah, the Eagles and the Washington will take NFC East for sure.
Oh, my prediction. What do we got here? A couple more things before we move on. Jimmy G to Seattle. Look at that's a possibility. If he becomes available, Seattle and Cleveland obviously are going to be in play. Probably the only two teams I can see that would be in play for him. I don't see another home for Jimmy G at this point in time. Worst one in the East. Wait, Jones is better. Jones. Worst one in the East. What am I missing here?
Jones is not better. Jones is not better than Trey Lance or anybody.
Yeah, he's not watching. Well, Jones is better. No, Jones. Look at Jones. I think Jones and Wentz will probably play about on an even level this year. Myself.
Whoa, you think that Jones can compete with Wentz?
I do.
Oh man, come on.
Look at Jones has got a quarterback-friendly staff now. He's never had that.
Oh my God, here we go again.
And I think he's going to get the mentoring that he needs. He stepped up.
Keith, are you serious about this? Listen,
I'm not a Giant fan. I have no dog in this hunt. But watching from outside, Daniel Jones made improvements in his game last year.
Giants fans are watching from the outside of making playoffs and Super Bowl runs for the last 10 years. Listen, this is Daniel Jones is maybe a backup quarterback in this league. And it does, even if he's had 4 coordinators and 2 coaches or 3 coaches, it doesn't matter. He's not, he's not going to be a bigger improvement than Wentz. Wentz actually did something and actually took the Eagles halfway to the Super Bowl until he got injured. So don't give me this Jones is going to be better than Wentz ordeal.
Al, real quick here. They do have the best coach in the division. You're right, the Commanders. I actually said Commanders. I'm proud of myself, probably because I'm reading it. They don't have a terrible team. Number one, you don't play the game on paper. And number two, I don't think they have a terrible team on paper. Their defense is really good. Their skill positions players are on a par with most of the division. Quarterback's a big question on that team. And look at, maybe Wentz isn't the best. I still think Heineke's a good player. I think he might be the best quarterback there. Sam Howell might come out of nowhere and be playing in the middle of the season. We don't know what will happen, but I do think this team will have a chance in the East for sure. I played offensive line and got knocked around a little. I didn't play any offensive line at all. I was a baseball player. I couldn't get myself hurt during football season. I had to protect my assets, as it were. This isn't the 2000 Ravens. You can't win with just defense. Well, we'll find out.
The Commanders will be okay. They have a great defense.
I think there's
and it wasn't just on paper. They played out, and they played a lot of teams tough last year. That defense did. So they won a lot of games on defense, on defensive stops. So
early in the year, their defense let them down, and that's what really put them.
Early in the year, yes, but later in the year, it was a different story for them.
I agree
because their offense picked up. But now that they have an actual quarterback that can help them, they're going to be in a decent situation.
And Allen is dismissing this offense. If the quarterback plays decent, Antonio Gibson is a really decent running back. Their wide receiver crew is really good. McLaren's really good. Curtis Samuel's got a lot of potential, and they just added Jahan Dotson to this team. Maybe the best wide receiver. He's in the top 5 wide receivers coming out of the draft this year. I think this team's got a chance to, again, got to be healthy. Breaks got to go right. Can't bury yourself early in the year like they did last year. Well, there's 2, and so's Dotson. I think Dotson will have an impact in his rookie season.
Look, Wentz will have a better opportunity with more tools than he did in Indianapolis instead of just having to give the ball up for a running game. So we're going to see Washington do some damage in the NFC East this year, for sure.
Let's move on before we run out of time here and talk a little bit NBA. The offseason, Jesus, we're only 10 days into it or something, and lots going on. It's been quiet the last few days other than I guess the big winners. So we'll talk about the winners and losers.
Well, let's talk about one big deal.
Go ahead. Start.
Okay, Robert Gobert.
Yep.
9-year player from Utah gets sent over to the Timberwolves for like half a team in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying that Robert Gobert with Karl Anthony Towns is bad, but I think the deal is going to hurt that's going to hurt like Timberwolves in the future, like because they sent over a lot of players, man.
I think this makes the Timberwolves a much better team, and Gobert wants to win. Towns has really made improvements as a player, I think. And I just think this is Utah's obviously tearing it all down. Donovan Mitchell's got to be the next shoe to drop there and get traded, because why would you keep Donovan Mitchell there when you're tearing it all down?
And I think this is all on Danny Ainge, right? This is what he does. He goes and rebuilds, and he likes to start from scratch, no matter what he is building up. I mean, but the Timberwolves giving up 4 players and 5 draft picks, 9 players total.
Well, in the long term, the Jazz likely win this trade. In the short term, probably the Timberwolves do. Okay, so here's the deal. It's a win for the Utah Jazz if they have great scouting. It's a lose if they have terrible scouting, because these future picks, they don't always pan out, man. No, that's a good point. They're all a gamble, every one of them. Right? I don't care how good they are in college. Look at the Knicks. How many first-round picks have the Knicks had in the last 5 years? We probably shouldn't use them as an example. They keep going to France to draft guys, for crying out loud. Jeez. I mean, Gobert is French, but I mean, he has proven himself. Look at. Okay, I think a couple other winners here early on are Gary Payton the second. Where'd he go? I lost my. You still there, Carlos? You just turn your camera off. I turned the camera off for a minute. Oh, that's okay. As long as you're still there. I'm here. I think as much as Golden State was a winner for 2021 and winning the championship, I think they're a loser because Gary Payton II is one of the big winners here. He revived his career. He signs a big contract. Gosh, where the heck did he go now? He went to Portland, I believe. And Golden State, I think, will miss Gary Payton and what he brought to that team. So I feel like they're in the loser category while Gary Payton's in the winner category. Yeah, I mean, that deal was good. Was good for both of them, being somewhere new and having been able to do something different. So that's a win for both of them. I really thought he'd stay there. I thought he'd stay in Golden State because of the way he was able to fit so well with that team and supply just what they needed. And it was a great fit for him. So I'm a little surprised he left, but he wins because, he gets a pretty good contract out of it. The Knicks, I think, are a winner. They had to make all these maneuvers to be able to get the guy they wanted. They'll be a winner if Brunson's what they think he is, at least on paper, to use that term again. The Knicks win here because they get the point guard that they need. And if he continues to play like he played since December of last year with the Mavs, he becomes a building block for the Knicks and see great improvement. Yeah, so this is a deal that I feel like Brunson is maybe 2 years too soon, especially for that contract and the potential. Well, again, there's still some moves to be made there. I mean, they're not going to be the number one seed in the East just by making this move. There's more moves to come, I think. Going backwards a little bit, Alan wants to know if we think Minnesota is a playoff team or a play-in team. I think at a minimum, I think they could be a play-in team with this trade this year. Again, I said Utah wins in the long run. I think right now Minnesota's the winner, and I think they do make the playoffs next year. That's the thing. Is the move is not a bad move, right? But my thing is that can it take them to the playoffs in that division? And that's going to be a problem there because they need depth, and they just sent away like 4 players, and 2 of them which were like, part of their leadership in Beverly and Beasley. So I don't know, man. They might not make the playoffs with this team. Kenny, our resident NBA hater, says the only winner is the people if the NBA goes on permanent strike. I'll let you get your comment in there. What do you got here? Alan is talking about SGA, Gideon, and Holmgren looking good as a trio so far for Oklahoma City. Look, I think Oklahoma City's doing some good things out there. I think they still could be a year away, but I think they're building things the right way. They're going kind of with that warrior model, trying to build with it, build from within, and then bringing in the pieces to complement them later on. And I think you'll see a lot of teams doing that. But listen, I like what Oklahoma City's doing, Alan, and I just don't know if they're ready just yet this year.
The youth movement is always important, but it's imperative to have a coaching staff there that will play these players. The NBA right now and these trades, what you see is like these moves, they're holding. There's a lot of teams holding players for no reason that have very little value as far as depth is concerned for their teams. And they're trying to move some of these players that have too much value and too big of contracts. And like, for instance, right now the Brooklyn Nets are going to stay still and keep these two players because the weight of their contracts is too much for other teams to take on.
Now,
and then look at the Knicks with the youth movement. They just signed Jericho Sims, which is good for them because he's not a bad player and he needs to play. A big problem with the Knicks' team is that they have Tibbs, who is a better coach with younger players, but with this team, he's been
no, he's a better coach with veteran players.
No, because when he was coaching Chicago, he had Gibson and Rose and Jonah, and they were young. They weren't veteran at all.
Well,
he was able to run them, but he ran them to the bone. And the Bulls didn't have any depth. They didn't go 8 deep at all, which is why they lost in the playoffs. Which is why Tibbs eventually got moved away from that team. But again, he gave away the house to have those guys on the team. And Tibbs is not a bad coach. He's just not a good coach for the NBA. And and the NBA has changed so much.
Where do you want him to coach? CYO? Where do you want him coaching?
He can coach in college. He'd be a great college coach. I mean, to be honest with you, they need his kind of mentality, and they need him, coaches like him in the NCAA.
I think you're going to see him. I think you're going to see him next year rely more on Sims, as you were alluding to. I think Grimes will be a big part of this offensive rotation next year as well. So I think you're going to see him go deeper on this bench, and which he didn't. People like you like to say he doesn't go deep on his bench, but there was 11 guys averaging or 10 guys averaging 20 minutes a game last year.
Yeah, but the guys that were averaging the 30 shouldn't have been on the court. Like Randall shouldn't have been in the court half the time that he was on the court, and even Bennett should have had less time and more rest because he was still building up on his stamina, and you could tell that in the fourth quarter in some of the games he wasn't even playing defense. He was just kind of staggering around.
Yeah,
and you can't have that when he's going to be your star player. He's going to be the star player for the Knicks for sure.
You mentioned the Nets a minute ago, and I don't think that. I think whether they have to hang on to these two guys, Durant and Irving, or they can move them. The Nets are the big losers here.
Yeah, because they're forced to right now to stay with these guys to see what else pans out for them after all these deals are done. That's why they're losers.
How can you stay with two guys who don't want to be on your team? That's a horrible recipe for disaster.
The New York sports teams have had that for almost ever on all their teams. There's always been 2 or 3 players that have hung on here longer than they needed to be here. And that's just the way, because of the way their contracts are worked out. I mean, in every sport, you can go from baseball to football to even soccer here in New York. Like, these players' contracts are so huge that they have to stay a year or two longer than they need to be here.
Yeah, I think there's no way Durant or Kyrie is a Net come opening day. If they're there when training camp starts up, I'll be shocked.
I think they'll probably be like those last minute trades that happen to either the Lakers or Houston or somebody willing to take the deal just to sell jerseys, man. Like, at the end of the day, these are two guys who are good players, have potential to take you to a playoff or help you in a playoff run, and they sell merchandise. So, it'd be a business move more than it'll be something to help a team at the end of the day, because these contracts have to be paid. So
yeah. To me, the biggest winners here in this whole offseason are the guys getting the max extensions. People complain about the money that Aaron Judge is demanding. You got a bunch of guys, I don't even know how many, getting $50 million per now. Bradley Beal, Nikola Jokic in Denver. I'm trying to think. There's some other guys, too, that have signed max extensions. But you got a ton of guys in the high 40s and $50 million a year now on these max deals. And to me, how is that good? I mean, one of the reasons the Nuggets can't get over that hump is because they don't get enough to surround Jokic with. The Beal signing that contract, he's not going to allow the Wizards to surround him with good enough players. If they want their money, that's great. But if they want to win, this is not good for the NBA. They lose in this, or the teams, I should say.
Yeah, well, right now the NBA, their union, and they're shaking at the knees because the ownerships are going to come through and they're going to be in a lockout soon. Because they can't keep having this, because you can only pay for so much potential, and you, even if you pay for the potential and you don't get any wins, I mean that looks bad on not only just a player but on the team and the community that's supporting them. So, and that's the first thing that people here in New York say, right? You got a huge contract. Why don't we win in championships, right? And so NBA is going to they're looking good right now. These players' contracts are looking great right now, but I would say within the next year or two, you're going to see a lockout.
Yeah, we did see Anthony Towns got the max deal as well. Zion got a big extension.
That's a win for Zion right there. Like I don't think anybody was going to touch him. He hasn't proven himself. He's already been injured, and who's going to pick him up, right?
He looks to me like he's going to eat himself out of the league, for crying out loud. He's a big guy. I don't know if it's just he's just big.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been a big guy, but I think after this injury, he's kind of humbled himself and going to get back and is getting back to work and is getting back into shape that he needs to be in. Not that he eats himself into, but
well,
look, it's not easy.
I do either, but
it's not easy to be an athlete and staying in shape. That's a job within itself, and a lot of people need to understand that. We're regular people with a small injury to our backs or to our knees. We're out for 2 or 3 days, and then we feel like we shouldn't be working for a month. Now, that's what they depend on, right? Their backs and their knees. Some of these players. So it's not easy being an athlete, and some of this money that they're asking for, yeah, maybe they deserve it or they should deserve it, but they need to also play up to it, So
listen, I just got to tell you, I'm going to turn 62 in a month, and I threw my back out completely, and I did not miss one day of work, not one day. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, but you're not guaranteed to have that job for 3 or 5 years either, though.
I better be.
They didn't say, "Hey,
under my belt." That better count for something.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, the older I'm just starting to get, the more I feel like I gotta take more and more care of myself, and that costs money, man. That's not. It's not just mental.
No, I agree.
So, look at I'm gonna give you a great example, and a lot of people talk bad about him or talk good about him. It's Russell Wilson. He spends almost $10 million on his health alone. That's like maybe like a third or like a quarter of his contract, right?
I'm
like
sure Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady is another guy. Yeah. So
yeah.
So these are things that these players they as much as their contract or some of their contracts more than it goes towards their health and trying to keep themselves in shape.
As we look at some odds, and let me get a couple. There was a couple of comments in here that were off topic, so I'll bring them up now as we maybe if you got any odds and ends, think about them. We'll bring them up as we wrap up the show. But Carlos wanted to, or not Carlos, you're Carlos. Where did my comments go? They disappeared. I lost all my comments. That's very weird. They went away. Anyway, I saw Alan put up that. Did we see that Robert Kraft was named a finalist for the Football Hall of Fame? Yes, I did see that. We'll probably dive maybe more into that next week. I thought that might be a good topic to look at who we think is worthy and not worthy on that list, and also I don't know what they call it, the old timers committee or whatever, named a bunch of people too, like Kenny Anderson from the Bengals. And
right.
I think next week that might be a good topic for us to cover. So we'll dive into that, and I'll ignore the massage parlor comment there, Kenny. I don't know whether massage parlors will matter in his induction or not.
Maybe. If you talk about Robert Kraft as an owner and what he's done to the Boston Mass area, he's well deserved of the award to be a Hall of Famer for the NFL.
The NFL.
If we talk about his personal life, well,
look if you want to talk about people's personal lives, we can empty out all the Hall of Fames, at least half of them.
Three-quarters empty, right?
OJ's still there, by the way. His personal life was a bit of a mess, if I remember.
Hey, the gloves didn't fit.
Unless you killed. Well, yeah.
He wasn't quitting.
The LA cops did a great job of framing a guilty guy out there. They did a wonderful job. Not to get off topic, but and we're going back decades here. But the craziest thing I can remember in my lifetime is a guy who obviously was guilty. The LA cops found the need to go out and frame him anyway. I don't understand, because I believe both things happened. I think he was guilty, and I think the cops were framing him at the same time.
I have no comment, but there's a lot of good TV shows and movies on this situation.
Oh, there's some great stuff. What I watch, FX has a series on.
Robert Schwimmer did good,
yeah. Yeah. He played Bobby Kardashian, I think Schwimmer did, and trying to think who played OJ now. I know the actor. Crap. Who was in that movie with Tom Cruise? He was a football player.
What's his name? Cuba Gooding Jr.
Cuba Gooding Jr. He played OJ, and he did a really good job. It was a really good miniseries. I thought pretty well done. But anyway, we got off topic here, but we're going to wrap it up here a little bit early because I got to run and grab something quick before I got to jump over. Carlos, anything last you want to add before we go today?
I just want to say that there's still more to come in the NBA trades. Last night's NHL draft was good. A lot of teams did make some good moves. More like I think they did a better job in the NHL than did in the NBA. Some of these teams. So look out for your teams, and we'll talk more about them later.
We will talk about all of that and more as the weeks go on here this summer. Plus, we'll be talking a lot about the shaking landscape as it continues to shake in the college football world as well. Guys, let's catch you next week with Are You Serious? Thank you to my co-host, the Mad New Yorker. You've been watching Are You Serious right here on TGI Sports Talk on Northeast Streaming Sports. That's a mouthful. Anyway, have a great weekend, guys.